Let's talk today about a tool that is, well, truly changing the game in AI art creation. Meet ComfyUI, a flexible generative AI toolkit you can use for images, videos, or even 3D models. Get ready to look under the hood and essentially build your own image generator from scratch. Look, most of the AI tools were used to operate like vending machines. You enter a prompt, you get a result. What happens inside is a mystery, and our control is minimal. ComfyUI asks a completely different question. What if, instead of this machine, we were handed a massive toolkit? A set of components from which you can build your very own machine for creating images. And this is perhaps the best analogy for ComfyUI. It's not just a program with a bunch of buttons. It's more like a workspace, a blank canvas, where each function is a separate block, a separate cube. And these blocks can be connected however you want, in any sequence, creating completely unique chains of commands. And they are exactly what leads to the final image. So what kind of environment is this? Let's break it down. It is, essentially, a fundamentally new approach to working with neural networks, an approach where we stop being just a user and become a true architect of the entire creative process. It's all about this modular, or node-based system. Instead of asking some black box to make us a picture, here we can build the entire path ourselves. From the very first idea to the last pixel, every step is visible, every parameter can be tweaked. This gives not just control, it gives complete freedom for experimentation. And to understand how all this works, you need to get familiar with just two key concepts. This is the very foundation, those very blocks from which absolutely everything in ComfyUI is built. So the first building block is a node. It's, let's say, the minimum working unit. One node is responsible for loading the neural network model. Another accepts our text prompt. A third creates a blank canvas for the future image. That is, each node is like a separate specialist on an assembly line who performs a single, very specific operation. But when we start connecting these nodes to each other, we get a working process or a workflow. And this is where the real magic begins. Because the workflow itself becomes part of the creativity, you can build a simple, fast chain for one task, or a highly complex, multi-stage system for another. And two identical processes will likely never exist. Now let's see in practice how these blocks are put together for the most classic task, generating an image from a text description. This will help grasp the very logic of the process. Essentially, the whole process is a kind of data journey. Our text is first turned into a set of numbers, then into some abstract noise, which then, step by step, begins to take shape, and finally becomes the image we see on the screen. Here's how it works, put very simply. First, our text is encoded, meaning it's translated into a language the neural network can understand. Then, what's known as a latent image is created. It's not yet a picture as we understand it, but rather a map of potential possibilities. After that, the system's main artist steps in, the K-sampler node. It, relying on the prompt from the text, step by step brings out details on this map. And at the very end, the VAE decoder takes this complex data structure and converts it into our familiar JPEG or PNG file. And now let's see what happens. This is where it gets really interesting. Because if each stage is a separate node, it means we can intervene in this chain at absolutely any moment. This table perfectly shows the difference in the philosophy itself. Standard tools are a black box. They give a result, but hide the process. ComfyUI, on the contrary, makes the process itself the main event. Want to see how another neural network model handles the same prompt? Go ahead, just swap out one node. And what happens? If we skip some processing stage, we just bypass the node. It's absolute freedom for exploration. And in practice, this opens up simply incredible possibilities. You can, for example, route data from one text prompt to two different models at once, and then blend their results to get some hybrid, never-before-seen style. Or create a workflow that first generates a character, and then automatically composites them into a separately generated background. The only limit here is your imagination. So what does all this mean on a global scale? ComfyUI isn't just another image generator, after all. No, it's a symptom of a much larger shift. And here is the key takeaway. What's happening is, if you will, the demystification of artificial intelligence. From some magical entity, it's turning into a set of understandable, controllable tools. AI stops being the author and becomes an obedient and incredibly powerful brush in the hands of the artist. And ultimately, It all comes down to this one question. When technical limitations almost disappear, pure creativity takes center stage. What new visual languages, what unimaginable worlds can be born when the only limit is the idea itself? It seems we'll see exactly that very soon.